Welcome to On Point. I'm Stephanie Murguia. 3 teenagers have died in just the past week from injuries sustained in high school football games. This and many other injuries and deaths have placed renewed focus on the sport's potential for lethal and disabling injuries. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention says nearly 4 million high school students nationwide suffer head injuries every year. A new California law is limiting the number of full contact practices to 2 per week and prohibiting contact practices during the off-season. The restrictions are designed to help reduce concussions and other serious brain injuries. Westlake High School football players and coaches say the regulations won't help.
Well, with the lack of practices, they don't have, their body's not in as much condition as it should be. So what we're seeing is an increase in injuries regularly.
Well, I think the less practices during like 2-a-days getting canceled, I mean, your conditioning is cut down to like half, so you get more tired during games.
We don't come out here as long as usual, so we don't build up our, I guess you could say, our stamina. And when we hit and stuff, we don't go to the ground anymore, you know, we just pop each other, so our bodies don't get adapted to like getting hit and giving hits and all that.
Others who have personal experience with concussion say something needs to be done.
The damage done by a concussion is permanent, so you don't really realize how serious it is, and it makes you rethink like the sport you're playing and what you're doing here. Yeah.
Because my son had a head injury. I actually had to give up my scholarship in college because I got a head injury and I was in a coma for 4 days. So to me, it's a real point of emphasis. Kids are bigger and stronger and faster, and people don't understand unless you're on the field the impact. When those kids hit, it's brutal. It's brutal. I think it's important and it's incumbent upon us to make sure that we teach these boys not to lead with their helmets, not to go for the head-to-head. That's huge, and hopefully we can cut down this, because having a kid die is terrible. I lost a child, and you're never the same.
The new law will go into effect January of 2015, but many high schools across the state are already implementing the restrictions. On Point's Candace Curtis is here to discuss some of the issues facing the All-American sport.
Thank you, Stephanie. To my left, we have sitting here June Dubreuil, which is a mother to 3 athletic boys. Next to her, we have assistant athletic trainer at Cal State Northridge, Ashley Meyer. And next we have 16-year football coach and former player Ellis Green. Welcome and thank you guys.
Thank you for having us.
Let's start right off. Coach, how do you feel about pushing yourself and pushing your players to their limits?
It's something you have to do, I think, in any sport, especially in football. It's a fine line trying to push a kid to the extreme and not go overboard with it. And depending on the different levels, you know, when you're dealing with a youth kid, I think it's a different way of how you talk to them and how you act with them. And when you're dealing with a high school kid, they're a little bit more mature, they're able to handle things a little bit different, but you can try to get the most out of them and push them to that limit a little bit harder than you probably would push that youth. But for myself, I kind of lead by, I go all out, so I expect them to go all out.
Great, thank you. June, having your son be in such a contact sport, how do you feel about the coaches pushing him?
You know, he's very athletic and he's strong, and he is not only strong, he's got a strong character. So he's that kind of kid that he will do what you ask him to do. And yeah, it is a little bit of a line, because I know he will always give 110%. If a coach says, I want you to do this, he's going to do it. And sometimes that can be a little bit hard as a parent, because you're thinking, you know, maybe he shouldn't be doing that, you know. But in general, I believe that, you know, he's going to always give his best effort. And I've always been able to put my kid in a program where I felt like he was well taken care of with good quality people. So I never doubted his safety and what they demanded from them, because I usually tried to do my homework and make sure that he's with good people and good coaches.
So really to educate yourself on what program you're putting your kids in and what program you're being involved with, right?
I mean, it's important as a parent to know who's coaching your kid, and to have discernment. You know, you need to be discerning, especially in a contact sport like football. You know, it's really important that you understand the culture of that program and of the coaching staff and what they expect from you as a parent and what they expect from your player. I mean, there are some programs or coaches that I would never let my kid play for. And so as a parent, you have to be just like you would choose the appropriate school or the appropriate, you know, things that you choose for your children. You have to be very diligent in making sure that they're in the right environment so they can thrive and excel, especially if they have that passion. So.
That's great. Coach, I would like to just go on and ask you, how many hours a week, I know that this new regulation is coming into effect, but how many hours a week do you personally spend with the players?
Well, I mean, you have a relationship with players on the field and off the field. Probably more so off the field than you really do on the field. So you have 3 hours of practice, you have films, another hour weightlifting. So you're talking about anywhere from 6 hours that you're in contact with them around that time, and then it's the seeing them off campus around on weekends. So I talk to my players a lot, especially with social media now. So you get a chance to see them on Instagram, you get a chance to see them on Facebook, and you monitor those things, and you go back and forth. So you have a lot of contact. I probably have more contact with players than their parents do, because the parents take them to school, take them to practice. During that time, they're not really dealing with them, but we see them and talk to them. So I'd say we have more contact. So it's a lot. It's a lot invested, and you get invested into every player.
Right. Now I want to go into the topic of our conversation, which is head injuries and just the whole general idea of them and what they're trying to protect us from. Given that kids are being pushed to their limits, as we just talked about, the number of head injuries has risen. Ashley, do you think that athletes are getting too competitive?
I don't know if the amount of injuries that have been reported recently has increased due to the competitive nature of sports. Obviously, athletics has been more and more pushed in childhood and early adulthood more recently, and there has been a slight increase in the number of athletes participating or number of youth participating in sports. But I think the majority of the research out there shows that the increase in injuries is more so seen due to an increase in education of parents, coaches, athletic trainers, all of that. So because head injury and concussion is such a hot topic right now, a lot more people are more aware of it and what to look for and how it presents. And so it's more so an increase in diagnosis rather than an increase in injury or rather than an increase in the number of athletes.
Okay, great. And given your professional background, can you shed some light on us who might not be, you know, as well versed as you in what a concussion may look like or what the effects of a concussion may be?
Concussions present in a variety of ways, and that's part of the problem with it right now. Obviously, the big key sign is a headache after some kind of contact, either head-to-head, head-to-ground, both. Headache is the biggest thing that you see, obviously, but any sort of abnormal presentation in someone's behavior or how they're perceiving the world outside of them. So that can vary anywhere from someone feeling nauseous and dizzy or feeling in a fog, that sort of thing. That term is used a lot, having their bell rung. Or if they say they're fine and then the parent or the coach notices they're not themselves, they don't seem like themselves, they're taking longer to respond to questions or to process information, that sort of thing. Those are some pretty typical signs. Obviously, any loss of consciousness or difficulty remembering things or seeing things, that kind of thing, spotty vision. All those can be different signs and symptoms.
Now, what about the medical standpoint of it? When you look on an x-ray, what do you see when you look at a concussion?
I personally don't look at any imaging. That's more of a physician or a neurologist that looks at CT scans or MRIs, that sort of thing. Concussions don't tend to show up on imaging, though, unless they're really severe or if there's a brain bleed along with it. What I do sideline testing or testing after impact, that sort of thing. There's a number of tools out there that you can use to assess a concussion. A lot of it tries to
measure different things that you can see objectively rather than the athlete reporting their own symptoms, because obviously if they want to go back into the field, they know not to say anything or say that they feel fine. So we look at things such as long-term and short-term memory. So we ask them to remember a few words and give them some questions in between, see if they can recall that later, see if they can recall what they had for breakfast that day. So that's some form of memory testing. Cognition skills, seeing if they can say the alphabet backwards or count down from 100 every 7 numbers, that sort of thing, getting their brain to have to work and see if they're able to or if that produces any symptoms. Their balance is another key thing that they can't really fake unless they're trying to get out of the game. But
like you're saying that they might not tell you,
right,
or they might not go up to a coach or a parent and say, hey, you know what, I'm not really feeling that well. Something's wrong, because they want to go out and they play the game. It might be the big game. They want to get out there. They want to do it. Coach Green, have you ever seen a player experience a head injury?
Actually, yeah, just saw it twice this past weekend.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah, I saw it both at the youth level and at the high school level. And very much what you said, and what Ashley just said, that some of the guys don't want to come out, and they fight it because they don't want to seem like they're soft or that they were weak in some sort of manner like that, and they don't know. I watched at the high school level. I watched a kid get hit, and he started to vomit on the sidelines, and it was a situation where for the first couple of minutes it seemed like he was fine, and then it gradually got worse to the point, and so he was taken out of the game, and they had to actually remove his helmet, which a lot of people are doing nowadays. Once they see it, they just take the helmet right away, so the kid can't come back. Excuse me. On the youth level, saw another kid, he had to be actually medevaced out of the field. He lost conscissness, and because of that, that's the protocol now is to take him out. So I've seen a lot of concussions over time. I've actually seen a couple kids with the brain bleed situation, and they're very unfortunate. And there are a lot of times when you can't recognize the symptoms of a concussion, and because of that, as a coach, you're so amped up, and it's like you ask the kid if he's fine, he tells you he's good, and you don't know. And they go behind the scenes, and normally it is a trainer that's kind of watching them to see those kind of things. You know, you mentioned that there's a lot of injuries now. I was just reading a study where Football USA, and I don't quote me, but they were actually saying that concussions are down in youth football as of right now. It's under 4% of the kids playing are having concussions, and part of that is because of the education now. And I do agree with the fact that we see now more concern about concussions because 15 years ago, you didn't have a concussion. You just got rocked. Oh, you got hit hard. And a lot of people didn't know about it. And
it's normal.
As we saw the NFL go, now we're seeing more and more, and it's become a big problem. And now I think what you're seeing is people err on the side of caution. So maybe the kid doesn't have a concussion, but is more likely to be diagnosed with a concussion just out of safety reasons.
Okay. June, have you ever had to deal with this with any of your sons?
Yeah, I did, as a matter of fact. My youngest son is primarily a baseball player, but he played youth football. And in practice, he got hit pretty hard. I wasn't even there, but I got a call from the coach right away and said, you know, Parker got hit pretty hard, and he started to throw up, and I believe he has a concussion. I want you to take him immediately to your doctor. Of course, that's exactly what I did. And yeah, they pretty much said, yeah, you know, he got a concussion, you know, he needs to stay out of the game for 2 weeks or so. And, you know, we did that. You know, he didn't play or practice. You know, he showed up to practice just to support his team, but he didn't engage. And then in a playoff game, he came back, and it was just a normal routine hit, nothing out of the ordinary, just a normal tackle. And he was out again. And that's when, for him, we decided as a family that football was not something that he was going to be participating in anymore. And it's just, sometimes it's just your physical nature. Sometimes it's how you're built. I don't know. I just felt like he was more prone. My middle son, knock on wood, there's some here, has been, you know, he's been pretty good with it. But I work really hard to make sure that he is well equipped. So I research helmets. I research shoulder pads, I research everything, and I will spend the money, even if I don't have it, to put the right equipment on my son, because it's cheaper and more cautious, and the benefit to make sure he's in the appropriate gear than to rely or abdicate my responsibility to the coaching staff or to the equipment that they have on hand. I want my child to be safe. So I make that decision for him. So I think a lot of this too is parents just need to take responsibility for their kids. Right. You know, take responsibility, make sure their equipment is functioning. Don't always rely on, you know, other people.
Or what the school's providing.
Or what the school's providing. I mean, and maybe what the school's providing is fantastic and it's top notch, but sometimes there might be something else that's better for your kid in his position. So, you know, and obviously the kids, they always want to be faster and they want it more cut down and they want lighter, but that doesn't always provide the best protection.
Right.
So.
Now we're talking a lot about education and to educate ourselves. Ellis, you said that we're not in the same time frame as we used to be. Right. We don't, you know, do things like we used to. We're much more cautious. We do things with a more timid outlook because we know what could happen and what the results have been. Now with the new regulation coming out, nutrition is also an aspect of this. So I know that kids go to school, they eat whatever's at school, and then they go to practice. Sometimes they haven't eaten that well, and then that, you know, relays onto the field. Coach, in your perspective, how important do you feel that nutrition is?
It's big because, like you said, a lot of kids sometimes just don't eat. And depending on what kind of programs, I've been in programs where we had kids that, you know, their families didn't have a lot of money. So one of the things we usually have to do is in the morning come and actually provide breakfast for our kids as an incentive to come to weightlifting and things like that. Not so much that they would come to weightlifting, but we knew that they were going to eat and be okay throughout the day. You know, with hydration, all that stuff. If a kid's not eating, he's going out and then he's going to spend 3 hours pushing himself to the max. That's just not healthy. And so a lot of kids, some kids, you know, it depends on the program and the area you're in, they have a chance to do that. They have the trainers. They have the ability to talk to certain people that may be very knowledgeable of that subject. But some areas, they don't have that. You know, sometimes you go to programs that, like I said, they're low-income housing, and the families don't have that ability to do those certain things. So as coaches and as parents, the coaches need to try to educate themselves so they can help educate the parents and also help educate the kids, because a lot of kids would rather save the $5 to go buy something else later than to go eat lunch. I mean, too often, hey, what you do today? Did you eat? Nope. Why not? Well, I'll save my money, go somewhere else, you know, for the weekend.
It's not their priority.
Right.
Right.
And they're kids, so that's where it goes sometimes.
June, what do you do for your boys? What's their pre-game meals, their post-game meals, and for practices too, because they need to be in shape for that too.
Well, I have a 6'1", 225-pound linebacker, so if you don't deny him food, not a good idea. So a grumpy linebacker is not a happy linebacker. So, but basically, I actually get up in the morning if I can, if he's not leaving at 5 in the morning to go do his own personal workout. But I'll make him breakfast. I believe in high protein, low carb, low sugar, lots of protein and lots of good carbs. You know, so I'll make him breakfast. I pack him a lunch a lot of the time. If he doesn't have lunch, I give him money so he can get a healthy lunch, because he's driving, he can do that. I also believe in supplements, but it needs to be NCAA approved, because there's a lot of stuff out there that can be very, very harmful. And coaches don't know what it is, and kids don't know. They might be taking that $5 that they're saving and going into, a health food store, or I don't want to name names of a store because it's not, and buy something that is just totally not appropriate for them and their age. So I provide protein powders and shakes and things pre-workout, post-workout. You know, him and I will sit down and talk about what's going to be your regimen, pre-workout, after you work out, and then meals. Before a game, obviously there's that old saying, carb up. Right. So, you want to eat, because your body is going to want to get close to those sugars and be able to,
run through those.
So pastas, I try and make like a chicken Alfredo or spaghetti or, anything like that, bread, you know, things that on a Thursday night because he's going to play Friday night. The other thing that is really important to me, and it was something I learned his freshman year, was about hydration and about cramping. And I actually provide a big Pedialyte in his lunchbox. Actually, his lunchbox doesn't even require have lunch because they have a pregame meal that's usually donated by a restaurant in town, which we love. But his lunchbox is just water, Pedialyte, and electrolytes, anything we can put in there. And the main thing is because he plays both ways and he plays 4 quarters, he's spent. And the cramping is just a huge deal on a lot of athletes. So hydrating is really important. But I take an active role in that. You know, I'm one of these crazy football moms, you know, and I care about, you know, what his health and because the worst thing as a parent is to see your son or your child, you know, hurt or, you know.
That's your baby.
That's your baby.
Yeah.
So it's a brutal sport.
It is.
It is a brutal sport, and I love it, but it's brutal.
Not that brutal.
But it is. I mean, there's a lot of contact, and you have to know that going in, and you have to prepare. So if I could tell anything to any parents out there, it would be just be involved. I mean, don't hover, but do take an active role, and you know, take responsibility for your child's well-being. I also believe, though, that the awareness is fantastic. I feel my son is going into an era that is safer and better than it ever was prior to him playing. So I actually have a sense of, yes, I know it's dangerous at times what he's doing, but in the same vein, I feel like that awareness is going to be better for him moving forward if he continues to play after high school.
Okay, good. Ellis, I heard you interject over there. You said it's not that brutal. I mean, can you elaborate on that a little bit?
I think football has gotten a rough image. I mean, everybody's all over football recently, and I think that one of the things that, and actually being a trainer, I'm sure you see a lot of the same injuries that happen in football, in soccer, lacrosse, field hockey, basketball, but you don't hear about them all the time in the sense of how you hear about in football, because the two guys are banging up against each other and they're tackling, they're killing each other and all that kind of stuff. So I think a lot of people kind of give football a little bit of a bad rap. It's a contact sport, but there's a lot of contact sports out there. I think that soccer is a very contact sport. I mean, they're all rough, you know. So I think education is part of it, a big thing. One of the biggest things I've seen recently now, and again, Ashley, you might be able to help me with this, because I think coaches get along with trainers better. It used to be a system where the trainer on the football sideline or any sideline was the person you really didn't want to talk to, because when you go talk to them, they're going to pull you out the game, and I don't want to hear that. You know, I think coaches now are saying, hey, let's talk to the trainer, and we still don't necessarily like to hear what they got to say, but you understand where they're coming from. So I think that's been a very big thing. Like, you know, some of the programs I've been around, we've had some great trainers, and you get to trust them and what they do. So football's rough. All sports are rough.
It is.
Yeah.
But I think it's because it's the all-American sport.
And that's it.
I mean, we take it very personally.
Yes.
When it's getting a bad rap. So, you know, we talk about it a lot, which is good because it needs to be talked about. Ashley, how do you feel about the sport or sports overall? How do you feel that they you know, allow kids to get positivity out of it, or what's your thoughts on it?
I mean, as a previous athlete, I think sports are awesome. I think they really do a good job in terms of development for kids all around, physically, maturity, socially, all those kind of things they hit upon. It's really great having to, especially the team sports, having to learn how to depend on other people and trust other people and communicate effectively with other people and work towards a common goal. And that's a huge thing for people to learn as a child or as a young adult, because that's definitely going to carry on into whatever profession you go into, where you're going to have to work with others and figure out how to collaborate on projects and all that. So sports definitely help a lot in that sense. There's a lot of camaraderie. You know, you make a lot of really great friendships coming out of sports. Having to go through all these ups and downs and physical hardships and all that with your teammates really strengthens friendships, I think.
It's good. June, what has football given your sons?
Oh, the world. I mean, really. I mean, I feel like I have 3 boys, and they're very active. I mean, if they had been more artistic or, That would be one thing, but they weren't. They were very physical, and keeping them active and positive activities. It kept them from fighting. It kept my china closet, you know, my china intact, and it was fun. I mean, I've gotten great friends out of the experience. My children have gotten great friends out of the experience. I never have to worry about whether they can get up in the morning and be motivated. I know that they can set goals, and they can work with others, and they care about winning and losing. And it's important that you do, I think.
It is.
You know, they're not passive people. They're very, very active, and I think sports has given them that. They've been able to travel, so it's been fantastic. I wouldn't, there are the men that they are because of athletics.
Good. That's great. I mean, you always hear that. But Coach, I mean, you got personal one-on-one time with these guys, and I'm sure you still talk to them now. Yep. Where have you seen football take some of these kids?
You know, it's taken them a lot of places. A lot of them some have gone on to play professional, and some have gone on to find out football taught them how to work in a different type of environment, some type of business environment for the reasons like they said, teamwork, camaraderie, communication skills, learning to work under pressure. So it's taken them all over. You know, sports is the best thing in the world for everybody. You know, it gives a chance for people to interact, and that's the number one thing I think that you get out of it. And when they can do that, then they can go on and they can be a better person at any level, not just athletics. You know, because very few of them are going to become professional athletes, but all of them are going to have to go into the working world, and that's where they're going to show what they've learned both on the football field and throughout those times in any sport.
Well, great. I want to thank everybody for being here with me today, and everybody watching at home. And that's our show. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ken.
Look at these boots.
Man, those are nice. You should buy them.
Half the price of the real thing. Do you want them?
The production and sale of counterfeit goods cause more harm than meets the eye.
Get to work!
And the profits can fund organized crime.
So, do you want them?
Buying counterfeit products?
No way.
It's just not worth it.
NFC, AFC, offensive linemen, defensive tackles, quarterbacks, and cornerbacks are all living united to ensure the academic success of millions of kids in our communities all the way to graduation day. But that won't happen without you. So take the pledge at unitedway.org. Make a difference in the life of a child. Suit up like your favorite NFL players and become a volunteer reader, tutor, or mentor with United Way.
Thank you for watching On Point. If you would like to see more, you can follow us on Facebook or Twitter at CSUN On Point. You can also see the show every Saturday and Sunday morning on LA Channel 36 and hear the show on Sunday mornings on KCSN FM 88.5. For all of us here at On Point, I'm Stephanie Murguia.